Hey y'all, welcome back. It's Mia. Today, I think you all know what we're discussing. Westworld Season 4, Episode 7, 7th episode of Westworld in the 4th season, the show that comes on HBO Max. Oh my goodness. Just coming out the gate here acting all kinds of crazy just because, wow. This episode was packed with so much that I think that it's a miracle that I'm even making this video today. It's a miracle that I'm even here talking to you. It's a miracle that I've taken notes. There's a lot of miracles going on. Now, I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression that I hated this episode and I'm like, oh my god, this is horrible. It was an enjoyable episode. I think it was definitely stronger than the last one. I just got a lot of information overload in this episode, which is kind of funny because last week I was like, wow, everything was kind of so fillery. And now it's like they had just threw everything in this episode. I'm like, on one hand, I wish that, I don't know, they had maybe pushed some of the stuff in this episode back into episode 6. But I'm also like, you also want episode 7, this is the penultimate episode, so you want it to be exciting, so I don't even know where to begin with right now, but I think I've got notes, so thank god I do know where to begin, so let's just jump into it. Okay, so I want to start with Bernard. He is a very, very central piece to this episode in particular, and I think what was interesting, what we saw from the very beginning with that cold open, was the whole idea of what I'm assuming was Bernard, or at least us seeing what it looks like to go through one of Bernard's paths, to see one of his, infinite scenarios that can happen where it's him and Maeve, they're at the Hoover Dam, they're opening up the Sublime, and then all of a sudden one of those mech robots comes and it presumably kills them. Then switch aspect ratio into the widescreen. We're in the Sublime, Bernard is chatting away, talking about the past and all of these things, and then we switch again one more time back to full screen mode. It's Bernard and Maeve kind of having the same conversation again. And I was like, wait, didn't they just have this conversation? Events happen kind of similarly to the way they did last time, but not so much, and they survived this round because the bot or whatever, he programmed the bots, he knew how to hack them, yada yada yada. And from that moment, what did I say about that specifically? I was like, OMFG, how much of this was in Bernard's head, bro? That was just a huge mind twist. And I know from what it seems, this episode happened pretty linearly. I don't think there have been any, I need to be saying this with my fingers crossed. I don't think there's been any specific time jumps or anything like that aside from the stuff with Christina, which I'll go on in a bit, but it does just kind of set the expectation that, hey, we're gonna be playing with time again, or we might be playing with time loops, we might be playing with simulations, and basically playing with all time space. And I've just been like, okay, this is just one big expect the unexpected. So I do want to jump into the Christina bit, but kind of tying it into the Sublime, because we do learn some information that I think is accurate. At the beginning of this episode, what ends up happening is Bernard explains that the Sublime has been hosted in the servers underneath the Hoover Dam. There's a lot of energy, hydro energy coming from that. It keeps it stable, keeps it alive, and of course, as we've kind of assumed, is that Hill wants to get into the Sublime, but she needs the key. Bernard has the key, so that's been kind of the whole thing. But what we don't get confirmed explicitly is the fact that if Hill has been manipulating Christina Dolores into giving her the key. So far, it's been the best theory, and a lot of us have been saying that so far, so I give everyone credit for that, but they still haven't explicitly said it. And on top of that, it made me, so when Bernard said that, okay, here's what I'm trying to get to. When Bernard said that, I was like, oh, so maybe this is confirming. I was coming around to the idea that, again, that Christina wasn't a simulation. And I was like, okay, but I can see Hale playing this out because she's trying to use anybody and everybody to get the key from Christina. But then that kind of changed a little bit when I was like, yeah, but that theory will only hold up if, things are happening in Dolores's world that are separate from what we begin to see play out with everyone else. So when I saw that Christina was influencing these people to leave Olympiad building, and then we see Stubbs and C observe that as well, I'm like, okay, well, their realities are now interacting with each other, so that means that Christina is not in a simulation. Okay, interesting. Except then we fast forward to the end when Teddy reveals to Christina that in fact the world is real, but they in fact are not. And so it's like, what does that even mean? So that's what I've been trying to wrap my head around in this instances. And again, it's this question that we've had lingering for so long, is what is the justification for Christina's existence? You should just see me like studying my notes and being like, did I say that? What is going on? So my theory, or kind of what I've been kind of wondering, is Dolores some kind of, I called it a ghost in the programming. So everyone is they're all hooked up together consciously, regardless of host or human. They are all able to be hacked. So I'm like, okay, is Dolores like a sentient computer virus? Probably the craziest thing I've ever spouted, and we've gone 7 episodes into this now, but I'm just trying to figure out if, how her actions in the Olympiad building had a direct effect on, the doors opening, the alarms going off, and everyone else seeing that happen in real time. I guess up until the point where William, the Man in Black, sent out the message, and then that kind of overrided everything that she was able to do. But to me, I'm like, yeah, how else, if they can't see her, or if she's not like physically interacting with her environment, then she has to be in here messing with them in that way, and she's kind of able to move fluidly through them in their world. Maybe it doesn't make sense, but that's what now. But I will say I have read some other stuff. This is like one of the few times I've gone and read it to just kind of see what everyone else is talking about ahead of time. I've seen a couple of comments talking about, yeah, they're in a simulation. Someone said a 1-to-1 simulation, so everything that is going on in the real world is also happening in Christina's simulation. But then the question is, well, for what purpose? So on one hand, the purpose could be a manipulation for Hale to extract key information out of Dolores, such as where's the key to the Sublime? Or another way that I saw in a comment was for Bernard to run Christina through a simulation as a way to unlock the true Dolores, kind of as his final weapon against the Man in Black. So like, is she the only one who can take him down? I just gotta say, I'm gonna say it. To me, there seems like there's way too many variables at play for me to, I don't know, even give you guys just a straight answer. And I hate to be like a defeatist, like, I'm just gonna pack it up. I'm gonna go, I may as well not do this anymore. But it's just like every time as I was planning this out and as I was reading it, I would think of one thing and be like, okay. And then you have a complete other thought, like, well, that affects this and this affects that. Or, yeah, that could happen. But this is also possibly, this can happen with Christina, or this can happen with Bernard, or Bernard's running this experiment, or Hale is running this experiment. So it's like, there's just so many questions that I'm like, I'm almost at a point of neutrality where I'm like, I just, whatever happens, happens. It's like my white flag almost. But for everyone's sake, I will continue on because I still have some stuff that I want to talk about. You knew this was going to be a mega episode because it's the penultimate episode. So I'm going to march on. I'm going to fight to finish this episode and send out some more theories for y'all. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was the Sublime opening, because we do see kind of like the Valley Beyond, basically, right? We see this rift in the Hoover Dam once Bernard and Maeve leave that site, and it's open. It's like the gate is open. The big question here obviously is, why would Bernard keep the gate open, and we know that I guess he died at the end of this episode. We're assuming Bernard died at the end of this episode, so he's leaving the gate open with other intentions. I saw a comment that said on Reddit, perhaps, this is me summarizing, he knows that society is due to collapse. Well, he knew that society is due to collapse. So he's going to store additional consciousnesses there, both host and human, to be there until a new society emerges, basically. And then I suppose whatever society survives from this fallout can go into the Sublime and bring back those people who have been saved there. And the question is, I was like, well, okay, yeah, that's well and good, but then the question is, but also, why do that in the first place, right? Why not just let these people perish? I know it sounds like super harsh, like, oh my gosh, Mia, you're playing the villain for once, but it's a real question. Why preserve them? Like when Maeve asked Bernard at the beginning of the episode, like, are you playing God? And I was like, yeah, that is a good question. It's like, what is this line between, as I called it, like heavy-handed intervention and just letting things play out? And I know there's the altruism and, wanting to save society, wanting to see them survive. But, and then it's like, who was the hero? Were you meant to play this role, or were you meant to sit back and let it happen? It's just so crazy, but it's Westworld, y'all. Give it up for Westworld. So going on this theme of survival, right? Huge theme in this is William begins to come to, or at least host William. Real William was like, beginning to tell host William, this is how I see the world. And so now we're starting to see that, okay, if society is on the verge of collapsing, they give like the roach in the nuclear war society, it's like, okay, who is going to be the roach? Who is going to be the survivor? What happens when this society is being rebuilt by these tough as nails people? And I say that with no answers involved. It just starts spouting questions. I'm like, and now you say something. But I think I wanted to say that just to kind of emphasize the point that this is all the Man in Black's interpretation, right? He has kind of taken over from Hale as the antagonist at this point, which that was a big twist. Y'all give them that. But again, this is just his point of view. It's just him saying, the way I see the world, y'all need to shut it down. And so I think that gives him a really strong motivation. I like that his motivations are clear. In a way, we were kind of wondering about Hale, like, why is she doing all this? But he's just like, hey, kind of like Thanos, right? Thanos in Avengers Infinity War, all through that whole saga, he was like, this is crazy. We need half the universe. I'm going to do something about it. So in a way, that's this plan kind of working out. Like, I know what's best for society. Society is destructive. We need to just let society destroy and collapse in upon itself. And so that's why the Man in Black decides, after killing real William, decides to, unleash this battle royale, right? He sends out the command, and now everyone is going at each other's throats. And, to kind of see who will end up in the survival of the fittest, if anyone at all, I guess. And I will also add, what I did like is that he's not sitting back in his ivory tower, almost literally like Hale. He is like, oh, I'm going to go participate. I'm going to put myself in this and see how long I can last, how long I can play. Because we've seen for the longest time, he's harbored this, extreme cynicism for the world. And so to him, it's like, if I die, I die. That's just life. But at least, I'll have fun going out. So that is a whirlwind. So the big question, of course, at the end of every episode is, where do we go from here? And I've really got more questions than answers at this rate, which I think kind of, at least the discussion questions will facilitate, or at least kind of guide where my thinking is going. Of course, those can all be diverted, but these are the questions that I'll be keeping in the back of my mind as we go into the finale. Such as, I'm just going to read these verbatim. What shred of humanity will be left in the aftermath? If anything, what bit of Bernard's plan will help humanity be reseeded? As he said, this world is going to die, but there's hope for, the new world, something like that. Or Maeve may have said that. They both had the same idea, basically. Next question, will society be reseeded by hosts or humans, or both? Will Hale come back into the mix, or is she useless against host Man in Black? Dolores says this whole thing feels like a bad dream. How much of what we see is still being run in a simulation? With the tower blown up, does this mean the battle royale has stopped, or will people still be in survival mode even after the fact? Or, are they still being controlled, or will they just go based on their own instincts and free will? And then, will a society prove William wrong currently or in the future? Will there be hope in the end? So those are my big questions. coming towards the end, and I'm just gonna simmer on them, you know, because there's a lot, like I said, and I'm just gonna let Westworld surprise me. I have some really, really high hopes for this finale. They have far surpassed my expectations this season so far. I've been having a lot of fun with it, so I think there's not a lot of room, knock on wood, for them to mess up with this finale. But I also think that as we finally get into the wrapping up of it all, that there is this kind of fine line between having a red herring, having clues, and then having an actual plot hole. So I don't think it's necessarily bad that we've got a lot of twists going on and a lot of like confusing elements, but you don't want, at the end of the day, you don't want some of those elements to feel like they were completely useless, like they just never paid off in the end. And so again, like I said, I'm just gonna sit back, watch the finale, chat it up with you guys in the comments, and just kind of enjoy the ride. You know, I'm past the point of having to be right, and I just submit and let the powers that be create hopefully an awesome finale. So I'm leaving it here, guys. Please leave a like if you enjoyed it. Comment, of course. I'm excited to see where your head is at for this finale. Just even I'm surviving is all I need to know. Subscribe, and I will be back next week for the finale episode, guys. So I will see you next time. Bye.